Welcome to the best hour of their day podcast with your hosts, Jason Fernandez
and me, Jason Ackerman. With more than 20 years in the business,
as both coaches and affiliate owners,
our passion is to help create world-class affiliates
and coaches by building
better boxes. Welcome to
the best hour of your day.
Fern, when you opened your affiliate, how long did it take you to get comfortable charging other people money?
Charging money? I mean, you have to on day one. Charging enough money, that's probably a different question. That charging enough money probably took me 5 or 6 years.
I think that's common. I think actually that's probably unusual in the fact that many affiliate owners never get comfortable.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're probably right. It pains me to say that, but
and
I don't think it's an inaccurate statement.
You've said this before. I'll let you do it, but talk about. There's definitely a time where Coach Glassman spoke about chasing excellence, and because of that, affiliate owners heard "don't make money."
For sure. And it's more, for me, that is not, that's not a statement of fact for me. It's more of just a hypothesis and just a question more than anything. I've always wondered about that. Like, where did that sentiment come from? Because clearly CrossFit was making a ton of money. Clearly Greg was making a ton of money, which is great. That's the way it should be. You introduce something like that to the world, I think you deserve to get paid. But I think looking back at it in hindsight, I don't think that was not a contributing factor, right? Because who was I talking to yesterday about this? The Jomo, actually. Have you read Sapiens?
Yeah, that was years ago.
So anyway, he talks about like inside of cultures, there's I forget what the term is because it's been a long time. I have to go back and read it. But talking about beliefs inside of societies or cultures, and then when you start to get fissures in there, things start to fall apart. And for a long time, and this is not a great analogy, but it kind of illustrates the point. But I think that was an idea or a sentiment that was misinterpreted when Greg gave that talk. And for whatever reason, it was just interpreted, due to people's own current life circumstances. They're like, oh, we're not here to make money. We're here to change lives. And it was just like, well, they don't have to be not related.
Well, and in fact, they're so related that if you change someone's life, you should be compensated very well for that. I mean, whether you're listening to this and have dealt with an injury, you dealt with disease, you have a family member that has, the struggles that causes, the burdens financially just in your life. So affiliate owners are quite literally lifeboats. Affiliates are lifeboats, and we're saving that and helping people, yet there's still that belief that we shouldn't be making a lot of money.
Well, and there's I think a lot of that has to do with people's previous life circumstances. For instance, if you were brought up in a modest home where maybe you didn't make a lot of money or see a lot of money, money can feel weird if you start to make some of it. And it might even feel wrong. However, if we were to take somebody who comes from means or somebody who's owned a previous business, right? That's another scenario that did make a lot of money, and they're like owning a CrossFit gym. They're not going to have any problem charging money because they understand the power of it, right? And it's one of the, if not the biggest issue that we deal with CrossFit affiliates when we onboard them in Affiliate U. The money thing is a huge component. It's why we assess on the front end and do the things that we do so fast out of the gate. It's why the budget portion of what we do in Affiliate U is so impactful, because we have to break that. We have to break that whole sequence, and we have to break some of those beliefs about revenue, about that they shouldn't have some, or that they don't have enough, or they're not, or all those things.
Well, something you just said that's really interesting is I think a lot of affiliate owners weren't previously entrepreneurs or business owners, so they're often comparing their current situation as an affiliate owner with what they were making in the real world, if you will.
Well, not even that, because in the real world, most of them were making more money. They were at least making a living wage, right? But I still think they recognize
Fair.
we've talked about this a little bit before, where they identify still as an employee rather than the business owner and the person who is taking all of the risk in this scenario. And that changes everything. If you take all the risk, you deserve at least the lion's share of the rewards in most situations.
Yeah, you and I have just read a couple of the same books, and that was an interesting topic, right? Like when your coaches are asking why they're not making as much as you for the affiliates that are doing well, and it's like, well, the difference between what you're making and what I'm making is the risk I took to get here.
Yeah, I don't think people get that question as much anymore. That's always a weird question. Be like, in no the business are employees making more than well, that's not true. They probably are in some CrossFit affiliates, but and some other businesses, but it's not it's
Mhm.
not the norm in the small business world for entrepreneurs for the some employees to be making more than the owner.
What very impossible question to answer. I'll ask
Oh, then
anyway.
I'll answer it.
What do you think? What do you think the average affiliate owner should be making?
What do I think they should be making?
Yeah.
I think they should be making between $80,000 to $100,000 a year. On that would be the mean.
No, I agree. I think affiliate owners should be making six figures. Like the work that we're doing, the change that we're making, the effort, the energy we're putting in. And again, that's if you're doing it well. If you're doing it poorly and not working hard, you're probably not going to make that, and you probably shouldn't be. But the our clients and affiliate you, that's always my goal. Like I want to get them to the point that they're making not just a comfortable living, a good living owning an affiliate.
Yeah, I mean, you should be making enough, obviously, to live and then to set yourself up for whatever your exit strategy might be, whether it to be some sort of legacy handoff to a child or something along those lines, or to sell it at some point down the road. And when I say sell it, I mean sell it for retirement money. I don't mean an exchange of debt.
Yeah, and not just because you're bored of it or not bored but burned out, and someone offers you 25 grand. That's not
Well,
retirement
that's
money.
my point. That's not retirement money. That's a I can pay for the next, I don't know, 1 to 5 months of my life money.
Yeah. So some quotes that we hear often with people interested in learning more about affiliate you is I'm not taking home the money that I want to, and I haven't taken a paycheck. And often we can there's plenty that will need to be worked on, but some of these are affiliates that have 60, 80, 100 members. And if you're not collecting a paycheck, if you're not paying yourself 4 or 5 thousand a month when you have 100 members, I'm very confident you're doing something wrong.
Well, it depends, right? So there's two primary components to both of those. The first one is I'm not taking home the money that I want, and then the second one being I haven't taken a paycheck. They're both related, not necessarily the same. So let's start with I'm not taking home the money that I want. My immediate question is like, show me your budget. How, like, but either your personal or your gym budget. And so one of the exercises we do on the front end when we onboard people is called the money map. And essentially we pop the hood and we look at basically all the finances. So people run through a questionnaire in there, and I've done, I don't know, well over 500 of them at this point. I don't even know what the number is. It's a lot. So let's just say that the data set is I don't know what percentage that is of CrossFit affiliate. What's 500 divided by 10,000? Just so we could do math here.
5%.
5%. Okay. So
5%.
it's a decent rep. Is that right? Or did you just make that up?
No, it's definitely
Okay.
5%.
All right. I'll trust the Jew. The it's a significant representative data set of CrossFit affiliates. And I can say with good confidence that I don't think a single one of them have input their numbers to the penny. Like they knew exactly what their expenses were. They knew exactly what their membership breakdown. It was a guess. They got as close as they could get without having to go through a pretty significant, investigatory process, which we do make them do after that. And that's the first thing, which is like, well, you're not taking home the money that you want because you have no idea how much money you make and you have no idea how much money you spend. So of course you're not making the money that you want because you couldn't possibly make a good decision with that much lack of information. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is, I haven't taken a paycheck, right? So the first one is you need to have a budget. You need to know what the numbers are so that you could figure out what it is that you need to live and then what it is that you could take from the business, or what it is the business could provide for you, because that's what it's for. The second thing is, I haven't taken a paycheck. I've had this conversation twice in the past 2 weeks where somebody either didn't take a paycheck or wanted to give it to somebody else first. And both of them, I had to come back and kind of refocus this person. I said, you must take a paycheck. The first reason you must take a paycheck is because there will always be something else that will replace that current thing that you want to give that money to. Always. I can tell you, having owned an affiliate for 14 years, there will always be something else that will come up and be like, man, I could really put that money towards that. And then what happens is you will always come second place or third place or fourth place. And then magically you'll wake up 5 years from now, still have not made or given yourself a paycheck. And then the hard part about this is like, that was an active decision on your part to not make to not take a paycheck. Okay. Now, going back to the first one, which was you don't have a budget. One of them was like, hey, I didn't take a paycheck last month. And I was like, well, why? And they're like, well, it just like, it wasn't in there. And I said, well, again, show me your budget. So if I've got a budget that's well crafted, there's some absolutes or kind of some fixed costs that are going to be in there. And then I've got surpluses of everything, whether you have an equipment budget, whether you have savings, or whether you have, you're putting money aside for taxes, like whatever. And I said, well, if you have buckets of money that you've not spent from, then you're going to consolidate that. That's what it's there for. And then you're going to pay yourself. But every month you're going to figure out how to pay yourself, even if you don't put that money into team benefits or, the equipment budget or savings or whatever. You're going to siphon that out and you're going to give it to yourself, but you're going to pay yourself, because nobody is immune to, the ravages of working for free. Eventually you will become resentful towards your team, the business, and your clients.
Yeah. Affiliate owners that experience burnout are almost always the affiliate owners not paying themselves.
Yeah. Because, well, this is where, so if let's go root cause here. If you're listening to this and you're like, if you're one of these people, somebody asked us up on the call the other day, they were like, how do I make it not sting so much when somebody cancels? I said, if you had 300 members, would you care if somebody canceled today? I said, no. I said, if you were making a ton of money, would it bother you so much? They're like, no. And I was like, that's how you fix the problem. And I know that sounds simplistic, but the point is like, when you're stretched when you're stretched to the max and there's no margin for error, everything hurts. Everything. And then this is the point of running a good business, because churn is going to happen. There is no scenario in which you have no churn as a gym. It's not a real thing unless you're kidnapping people and forcing them to work out in a basement somewhere. That's more like your
new model.
It's more your style.
We'll dig into that.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right though, because I vividly remember as an affiliate owner when I had 30 or 40 members and someone quit, you're like, oh, I'm making less money next month.
Or right? No money,
versus
because that was it.
When you have 300 members and a budget and you're ahead 3 months with your budget, cool. Like, we'll have more members shortly, right? It's not a big deal because we've planned out for that.
Well,
and
there's
not only is it not a big deal, it's probably necessary.
Yeah. And there's multiple components of that, which is kind of, I think, a separate problem, which is they don't know why they're leaving, and they don't know how to acquire new clients, right? So the margins are thin. I'm already in a quasi stressed state. So any negative feedback that comes into the machine stings more than it should, you know. Like if you were sore, right? If you worked out and you were like, you had a solid case of DOMs, you did, 500 air squats for time or something like that. Well, you're super sore. You have a ton of lactate built up in your system, and you have all sorts of, muscular debris trying to get out of your lymphatic system. And if I go poke you in the quad the next day, that's going to hurt more than it should because you're in a state of duress already. If I'm running a business with no margin, that person that cancels is like me poking you in the leg when you have DOMs. Like normally, if I was doing just fine and I was training correctly and recovering correctly and doing those things, that wouldn't be an issue for me. But because I'm super sore, it's now a real problem, and I'm going to get irritated with you and maybe punch you in the face because I'm like, why are you doing that? Because that really stings now, right? It stings because I'm in a worse off scenario than I should be.
Let's talk about three kind of subtopics under this. You kind of alluded to them, but really when an affiliate owner is not making money, we can look at, how well they're closing leads, their retention, and then potentially should they increase their rates. So let's start with closing leads. Often affiliate owners are just doing a terrible job at that. And then they're like, I need more leads. And it's like, you're not closing the ones you're getting. We need to do a better, you don't need more leads. If you're closing 50% and you have 10 leads, you're crushing it.
Hold on, you skipped many things, but you essentially did get to the point there, which is you're giving the benefit of the doubt here. So I was having this conversation. I had 3 DMs in the past 3 days about this. People coming at me, and they're like, hey, what do you think about paid lead gen? I need more leads. I need more leads. So, and by the way, when we go to affiliate summits, this is the number one topic that people want to discuss is lead generation. Okay. So first and foremost, paid lead gen works. You should go listen to some of Alex Hormozy's stuff. He kind of puts it very succinctly. He was like, hey, paid lead gen works. Like you pay money, you get in front of eyeballs. The variable there is like, how good is the ad? Right. Which that's a different ball game over there. But, right. But
he also talks about there's 3 other free ways to get new leads before you start spending money.
That's the part that everybody somehow like glosses over, and they're just like right to lead gen. And he's like, I'm like, you weren't paying attention when he was talking. Like that's down the road. That's the advanced version. But here's anytime somebody has that, again, I'm not sure I've gotten a really solid answer more than maybe 3 to 5% of the time when asked this. They're like, I need more leads. I'm like, how many do you currently get? And I always get like a real rough answer. Nobody's like, let me pull up my spreadsheet and fucking show you. Yeah. I'm like, I got 7, I did this. And I'm like, okay, well, if you don't know, how can you tell me that you need more? Like, it's not that you need more, it's that you're not tracking correctly, because what we probably will find is that there is a solid number of leads in there, or we might find that maybe you are lacking some leads, but there's some free things that we can do, like sort out your website, right? Like, meaning like your user experience or UX on your website is not optimized to actually capture information to give you any, swings at the plate. They're just,
right. So all the leads in the world would just be falling off your website anyway.
Falling off your website, or you just giving them all the information they asked for without ever talking to them. So it is very rarely, very rarely, because and this is why I think the scope of the problem is worth outlining, because most of them are surviving, meaning like they're getting 3, they're losing 4, meaning like they don't need to bump up their overall lead gen by 50 or 60. Not that we wouldn't want that to happen. We definitely would, if in fact you had a really well designed sales process and system in order, and well crafted offer. Now I'm like, let's go, right? You got that in a budget, I'm like, fucking crank away. But if you don't have those things,
they don't.
It's not the lead. It's not the quantity of leads, right? It's the fact that you don't know how many there are, and you wouldn't know what to do with them if I gave them to you anyway. You couldn't walk me through step by step the sales process. So it's a multifaceted problem, and I get it, right? The allure of paid lead gen and 100 people knocking down your door is super sexy, dude. That's the red dress analogy that you talk to. You're like, that is sexy AF. right? Like let's not kid ourselves. Of course you would want to do that. The problem is it is fleeting at best if in fact you could do it. Meaning like paid lead gen is typically a lower quality lead. And if you're not closing at a high percentage and know exactly where your drop off is on organic leads, which are people that would highly likely give you money if you called them back, you're going to do really poorly with paid lead gen. And crushing in paid lead gen would be 50%. Crushing. If you were hitting home runs in paid lead gen, you'd be in the 50% range, right? Which means if you're not good at organic, you're not going to be anywhere close to paid lead gen, which means it would be almost mathematically impossible for you to be able to come out ahead. I mean, you wouldn't close enough leads to pay for the lead gen that you were running.
Yeah, and we're both big fans of what Hormozy is putting out there, but we saw the impact of this 6-7 years ago on affiliates where they were getting hundreds of leads, and whether or not they were able to close on the majority of them, it would just destroy their business because now they have too many members and they're not taking care of the original members who are also the ones that love CrossFit and are paying full price.
Well, and also that game has changed 5-6 years ago. Like you could get your CPL down under $5. Like at this point, if you're really good at creating ads, you could for sure get it under $10. Most people are happy with 20, so you're looking at 400% increase on CPL for most people running ads. And again, this is not to poo-poo ads, right? There is a time and a place and a specific strategy that would make ads effective. The point is like you don't have enough information. It's a risky endeavor is really the point. If I'm looking at my lead, I don't have enough leads. I'm like, well, okay, well, you are getting some. How many and where is the fall off? And if you're not getting them, why? Because there are some things that we can do, and we do it very often. Scrubbing people's websites is one of the first things that we do when we bring people on board. And we're like, oh, I can change that. And for most people, if I increase their lead flow by 3 to 5 per month, I could get them back into a net 3. But it's again,
you're talking about warm leads.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about somebody who Googled CrossFit in my area and then hit my
right.
my consult button on my website, right? So that doesn't cost you anything, and I was having this conversation with somebody on DM today. He was just like, well, I just want to hire somebody to do it. And I'm like, listen, dude, he was just like, well, I don't, he's like, I was like, you should learn that skill. He's like, well, I don't, I'm not an accountant. I do my accounting and I don't do this. And I don't hire an accountant. I'm like, yeah, but in this scenario, bro, that analogy doesn't work. He was like giving he's like, well, I'll pay somebody to fix my car. I was like, yeah, but in this scenario, you own a car repair shop. I was like,
yeah. Also, you're not at risk of going to jail if you mess up a number, right? Like you are with your taxes. The point was,
he's just like, why pay people to do these things? And I'm like, right, but that's different. Like, yes, the person who owns the car shop might not turn the wrench or change the oil, but I guarantee you that person knows how to do that because he will hire or fire based on somebody else's skill set because they have context and know-how and all these things. And I was like, so it's not that you need to do it. You need to be capable and competent in order to manage people when they do those things. And that's where the disconnect comes is like, if you don't know how to do it, you're going to hire dummies. It's just inevitable. Right. Or somebody's going to get over on you. Be like, oh, I can do this for you. And you're looking at it and you're like, that's not adding up. Or you're just like, I don't know why it's not working. And I'm like, well, if you knew anything about this, you would know why this is not working. But you don't. So there's a difference between, and when we're talking about like lead gen or anything else, or your budget, if we were talking about an account, well, my accountant does my books, right? It's just like, well, you should still know what your cash flow is. There's a difference between outsourcing and abdicating. Outsourcing to some degree would insinuate that like, I know what I'm doing. It's just not worth my time anymore, but I'm going to ask the accountant the pertinent questions that I need to about like, hey, that's wrong. I think you should fix that. Or like, hey, that CPL sucks. Like, what are you guys doing? Are you guys continuing to run different variations of that ad? Like, turn that shit off. I don't want to pay $59 for a lead, But if you don't know any of those things, you wouldn't even be able to ask questions that would be relevant to your situation, at which point like you would lose. And so I think that's the big thing is just like outsource for sure, but do not abdicate your responsibilities as the business owner. At the end of the day, it all falls on you. Like, you can't be like, well, the ads guy didn't save me. And I was like, yeah, it's your fucking business. His job is to sell you his service, not save your business.
So before we dig into retention, sounds like three major takeaways. One, know how many leads you actually are getting.
You have to.
Two, know where these leads are falling off if you're not closing them. And then three, do a scrub of your website, because you could potentially be getting more leads, but your website isn't up to snuff. For a lot of our
right. The website is part of number 3, which is like, you have to have a good offer, and the website is part of the offer, right? It's their first introduction to said offer, whether they found you via social media or not, but the website is going to be the first communication and first opt-in for the offer, right? So if your website doesn't work, you can't actually get to the actual offer that should be communicated correctly on the website. So all of that, it really is like, you have to track them, right? If you track them, you can find the breaking points, and then you have to have a good offer, right? So advertising, paid or not paid, again, it's like, to steal some words, right, is just like telling the world about your thing. That first thing is on the website. We can help you. Okay. Well, how would you do that? Fill out this form right here. Okay, cool. Call you back right there. So if you don't know where that fall off is, then you're already at risk. That's like going into the casino and making bets and playing games you have no idea how to play, don't know what the odds are, and you aren't really sure how much money you started with. It's like, oh,
time and a place for that. But yeah, and no, I think what you said is true. Like, a lot of these affiliate websites we look at, it's like, it's not obvious what you're doing, and it's like, if you're not telling people what you do, how are they supposed to know about it?
Yeah, who's your audience? What do you do? What problem do you solve? It's a given that you work out, right? It's a gym. That part is relatively obvious. So it needs to be a little bit more specific, messaging there on, the demographic, age, what problem you solve. Is it weight loss? Are you competitive at gym? Like, if it should communicate that. And then that is part of the offer about when they come in, like, how do I sell them something?
Well, problem number 2, let's dig into retention, right? I'm going to throw out a couple quotes that we hear. I'm not sure where I'm going wrong with retaining. Mm-hmm. What can we do to help our community grow? It feels like every time that we get 2 or 3, we lose 2 or 3. When we purchased it, we had 120 members. Now we are struggling to get over 80. All common scenarios.
Yep.
The age-old expression is,
go ahead.
It costs more to gain a new client than to keep a new one.
Yeah, I mean, as far as order of the cheapest client is the one that you already have. The second cheapest client is getting an old one, and the third cheapest or the most expensive is getting a new one. So the same issue is here with the previous 2, which again is lack of information. So how many clients are you losing? How many members went on hold or canceled last month? I don't know. I just know that we canceled. I'm like, okay, well, what's the running trend over a 12-week period? What's the average? Okay. Why are they leaving? And then secondly, how many of those could you have predicted or saved if you were paying attention? Somebody yesterday, I think it was yesterday, was just like, we had cancellations, and, one of them came through, and I look, and I was like, man, well, we were going to lose that one anyway. They hadn't been in 6 months. And I was like, bingo. It wasn't that they canceled. It was that you had no idea that they hadn't been in 6 months. So that's on you. Okay. So I think it's tracking, right? So like, an interesting ratio for somebody to look at, and this goes into revenue and leads, is like, what's your ratio of referrals to cancellations? I can tell you without a doubt, it's terrible. I can say that as a statement of fact, knowing nothing about anybody that's listening to this. It's awful.
Well, just because most affiliates are not doing a good job getting referrals.
Well, number 1, you couldn't tell me, but number 2, if in fact it was a positive ratio of referrals to cancellations, you would be growing for infinity. Like, so think of this as like, there's let's go back to the level 1 here real quick. So let's think of, you've got anti-inflammatory and pro-inflammatory fatty acids, which are, you can chime in here, So
What'd you just ask me?
yeah, right. So Jay apparently has never.
You just went completely off topic on me
I
and then
didn't. I
threw
didn't. I'm
a
making an analogy.
bomb.
Right. So okay. So let's go back into the nutrition lecture and we talk about. There's only really one supplement that we talk about, which is
Oh, you're talking. Okay,
okay.
fish
Which
oil.
is okay. Fish oil. Thanks, Jay. That's going in your after.
EPA, DHA.
Yeah, that's going in your after action report.
EPA.
And
This is not
and
a seminar.
and the ideal ratio, because you need both. One's anti-inflammatory, one's pro-inflammatory. The ideal ratio there would be a 2-to-1 of 6-to-3, right? Where most people are running around at a 20-to-1,
Correct.
right? If
30
even
to,
if you
yeah, 30 to 1,
even if
20
you
to 1.
were running a 2-to-1 cancellation to referral ratio at your gym, this is not including any organic lead flow. At which point, I would still
Right.
be
This
willing.
is just referral
This is
growth
just referrals.
only.
If only. In which case, I'd still be willing, knowing only those numbers, will be willing to place bets if you're running a 2-to-1 ratio that you were growing steady net 3 month over month. Because I can make some solid assumptions about the organic leads that you're getting. But if you're getting a 2-to-1, you get 2 cancellations, you get 1 referral, right? You get 8, you get 4. Okay. I still know things about what your organic lead flow looks, generally speaking. Obviously, at some point that number doesn't work anymore, but nobody's running those numbers anyway, at least in a gym.
And to be clear, what you're saying is to cancel, I get 1 referral.
Right.
That's another member of yours brought in a friend, family member, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We're not suggesting that's all you're growing. That wouldn't work. We're saying you're still growing from natural warm leads.
I'm saying if I
clicking on the
only
website,
measured those
people
2
seeing your
things,
sign.
I'm saying if I only measured those 2 things, I can make some assumptions about what your organic, meaning like your organic search leads would look like. And all of this is really to highlight is just like you have to know the numbers. How many people are canceling? How many referrals are you getting? What does attendance look like? What does attendance look like by coach on average, week over week? What is attendance by class? If you didn't know for 3 months that the attendance at the 6 a.m. was steadily dropping, that's your problem. Because what you would have found out was that nobody liked that coach and they just didn't say anything. So retention is about,
one of the things you and I recommend,
right?
Is following up with members that cancel, because you don't learn those things without asking.
Well, you wouldn't have to learn them the hard way if you were paying attention, is really the whole point, or you knew what to track.
Yeah.
Meaning like, oh, that's a trend there.
Yeah.
I should probably ask some questions. Is it the coach? Is it the programming? Is it the time of year? Is there a shitty member in that class that is just bugging everybody? Like, but I would watch that trend go down, or put it on the sick well fit continuum, right? If that number starts to drop off, that attendance drops below whatever I have established a well attendance, call it 5. Why? What's going on there? It wasn't nothing, So when it comes to retention or when you're talking about like, is it not me? Well, to some degree, it is you. Is that you don't know you're either don't know what information you should be looking for, or you're not doing your due diligence to capture that information so that you could.
Yeah, and or you're just not doing a great job at the box.
Well, that is not doing a great job at the box, right? Because we could again, if you don't know those things, we could make some solid assumptions about other things that are not getting done, right? And number one, I don't want to be if somebody's listening to this, they feel attacked, and it's just like, you may not even know that you're doing these things or not doing these things. Like, you may be listening to something that I just said and you're like, I've never fucking considered ever looking for that information. I'm like, okay, great. Well, now you know, and I need to go look at that and start with like one metric. But the more information that you have, the less caught off guard you will be by things that happen inside of the gym. You will almost be waiting for them to happen, right? It's just like at some point you could start to read the matrix. You like looking at trends, looking at certain things. You're like, oh, I feel like something is going on here. What would that be? And I can start asking questions or poking my head in and potentially head things off at the pass, right? I can make a coaching change. I can talk to that member who's causing issues. I can tweak the programming or find out what people don't like about it. I can do any sort of things, but I would catch the trend much, much sooner. And here's the good part about doing this is your members will be very thankful because they're going to be like, wow, they're really paying attention. Like, I don't know why they came in here, but it was very timely that they came in here. I was going to go talk to him and he beat me to it. And I was like, yeah, because I'm looking at the information. Like, I knew this was happening. I didn't know why, but I knew there was something weird going on here. So I want to know what it is. And I'm here. And they're like, yeah, Bob doesn't wash his knee sleeves and it's really gross and nobody wants to be around him anymore. And it's like, oh, all right, well, Bob, we have a washing machine. Feel free to wash your knee sleeves with the towels every day. But like, that's gross. Don't be gross.
Retention is, I would say, easy to solve, but it's pay attention, be invested in the community, talk to your coaches, because oftentimes your coaches will have insight into some of the issues that you're not aware of, and provide the best possible service and value you can to your members.
Well, think about this. Like, how many affiliate owners come to us and they're like, man, I just love my community. 150%.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, all of them, right? Well, if you're paying attention to any of the metrics that I just talked about, you would be able to better serve them and make them happier, because you would go in there and you'd be like, oh, I can make that better. I can fix that for you. Clearly you don't like this. We need to work on our coaching staff or like whatever. So knowing this information is how you problem solve to then provide a better service to your members. The issue with all of this is it's just not sexy. It's not fun, right? But there are ways to make it. There are ways to make it easy, right? There are ways to make this easy. This is something that like I'm working like very, very close with Wodify to try to create dashboards where people could see this stuff. Cause like, these are important things that like, if you haven't been doing this a long time, these are not things that you would know to pay attention to.
Well, yeah, and I think you say it doesn't have to be fun. You're right, it doesn't. But to me, it is. Like, this is being the gym mayor at your box. If you're the gym mayor and you're socializing with your members at the gym and on top of it and just providing value, Coach Glassman used to say, if people are leaving your gym to go to the one down the road, they're probably just having more fun than you.
Yeah, they feel more seen, which is, how do you feel more seen? Somebody's paying attention and they're trying to keep their pulse on what is going on there. And that's retention. Retention is making people love it.
You're in the gym mayor role now. Like, it's the best. Like, it's what you should be after as an affiliate owner.
It's it can be fun. It can be not fun. It's just like everything else. There's ups and downs in there. But what it does is it gives you a different perspective. It gives you the freedom and the bandwidth to really look underneath the rug, to really kind of look behind, that door over there and look into reports and stuff like that, and really start to like, what makes the affiliate tick, man? You start asking different questions, like, why does that person always come to this class? Or like, why do people show up on the days when we do these workouts? Or like, I kind of saw that. I kind of not surprised why that person was going to cancel, but why? Like all those things. Like, you can start to pay attention a little bit more. But it starts with, you got to be the one doing all that information. You got to know how to run those reports. Like, you got to know the ins and outs of those reports, and you got to know what running a good class looks like. And you got to know that if I'm not doing coach evals, that I will likely have a drop off in coach performance, which will then lead to a retention problem, which will then lead to a revenue problem. And if I don't know how to generate leads, we can all see how all of this starts to bleed over into a scenario in which, you end up calling us, which is fine. We want to make that easy for people.
So the question you asked, and we talk to our affiliates and affiliates around the world, like, do you love your community? Yes. And the follow-up question is often, so do you think you could do a rate increase? No, my members would be mad. So let's dig into that, because if you're listening to this, I want you to answer that question. How strong of a community do you have? And then I want you to think about, okay, can you do a rate increase? And if you have a strong community and you answer no to a rate increase, you don't have a strong community.
Well, I wish it was that black and white, right? But there's some questions there, right? Which is like, most people probably need to. do it in some way, shape, or form. Now, there's also many ways to do that, right? So if somebody has reservations about it, well, it's not just like, hey, walk in there and be like, all right, everybody, I'm doing a terrible job, so rates are going up. Like, that's not at all what we're saying. You'd be like, I'm broke,
Yeah.
so prices are going up. And I'm like, well, you're about to be unemployed because
Yeah.
that's not going to pan out for you.
Yeah.
So this is, and I know people would like to say, it'd be like, oh, there's, it's all boxes are the same. I'm like, no, they're not. Right. And this is why we do this so successfully. Like, we've had 100% success rate when doing this. And I say that like with strong confidence that that it's 100%.
I say that
Like,
to people all the time, and it feels weird, but I'm like, we've truly had 100% success rate.
and it's because there's a lot of context that needs to go into that conversation. Be like, when was the last time you did a rate increase? How are things generally going at the box? What improvements have you made? Are you doing any sort of social events? Like, how are the classes run? Generally, what is the vibe at the gym? Like, what is, like all these questions we start to get into, like, what is that rate increase going to look like? How many people, like all this kind of stuff. And you get in there and it might be a 3-layered cake that would take 18 months to do it safely and effectively. Right. And I think I've maybe done one, like on a short timeline. And I was like, you have 0 other options here. And it pains me to say that, but like, either you do this or you go out of business. But like, that happens once in a blue moon.
So let's go over a couple of scenarios and things that we hear. I have old members that are grandfathered in.
Mm-hmm.
I am just too fucking nice. I can't raise prices if I don't see my members. Me being comfortable to ask for more money, a scenario where they're not comfortable. And, I'll throw in there where it's just a lot of the time it's an affiliate owner putting their own belief on money on their members. Like, I don't know. People can't pay more than this. Like, I couldn't do that. Cool. Like, maybe you're not your avatar then.
Just too nice. That's a story, right? If you were really nice, you'd give them the best experience possible. Right. Like, listen, and I've been to a dive bar. I've been to a dive bar and I've been to the Ritz. You know who was way nicer to me? The people at the Ritz. Like, just as a matter of fact,
But one thing that affiliate owners need to consider is when your rates aren't high enough, you're just getting lesser quality members with less buy-in who are more likely to cancel rather than charging more, and the perception of the value there immediately skyrockets.
Well, there's a couple other things to outline here too, which is they've not outlined what it is that they do, and they've not gone through this whole value proposition exercise. Like, what value do you offer, and what is that price, right? So remember, basic principles like value, what do they get? Price, what do they pay, right? We want the value to largely outweigh the price that they pay. Like, that's the game. That's how you charge for anything if you want to crush. So you have to work through that. We talked about this in previous podcasts. I'm like, what do you get with your membership? And if your answer is just 12 classes, I'm like, great. We have a really nice starting point to add many, many things to that list. If it's old members, well, A, you have a conversation, but B, there's a pretty simple process for that. And it's not just gouge them, right? But also understand that, like, some of them are old members are taking advantage of you. That's just a fact. And I know somebody are just like, no, they're not. And I'm like, listen, if they give you a hard time about raising prices and they're just like, well, I'm like, they're taking advantage of you. Don't fool yourself. Like, that is for sure taking advantage of you. Now, you can navigate that many ways you want. You can go the short game. You can go the long game. I tell everybody, I'm like, take the long game and then kick them out when you're financially ready to kick them out. But like, if you need that revenue, I'm going to be the first one to tell me, like, you're going to have to deal with that person's shit for another 6 months. Sorry. It'll be worth it though, because eventually you'll sell past them and then you'll be just fine, But if you have grandfathered rates, the first question you have to ask yourself is like, what have I done to justify a rate increase? Have I up-leveled? Have I upskilled the coaching staff? Have I increased the space? Did we move to a larger space? Have we put a lot of time and energy into the amenities? All of those things. Right? Are we running more efficiently? Do we have more classes? Like, all of these things would justify, number one, higher expenses, which therefore should justify higher, price points. So you just walk through that. But most of the time, again, this goes back to the running theme here, which is like they're afraid to raise the price because they're assuming doomsday scenario and they don't know all the information. I'm like, what is this? How much is this going to equate to if you raise everybody's prices? How many people is this going to affect? What is the likelihood that 100% of those people affected are going to leave? If they all did leave, what would that math look like? Do you have any sort of backup plan here to negotiate with anybody that you are going to need to keep around because they might walk out with 10 people? Those are all the scenarios that we would walk through in that scenario in order to help them navigate that and do it effectively. And effectively means you get everybody across the finish line, even if some of them get there a little bit slower than others.
Yeah, and it might mean a handful of conversations. What I have found with helping our clients do rate increases are most people that reach out to you simply want to be a voice and be heard. They're not going anywhere.
Right.
They want to either ask questions about what's going on or just, if especially the grandfathered in ones who have been there 2, 5, 10 years, like they just want to feel some value there. And it's simple, have those conversations. But I mean, I couldn't count on one hand the number of times we've had a client so stressed out about a rate increase, send it out, and then the first response they get is like either about time or, don't wait 2 months to increase me now, or, so many iterations of that where it's
you're also going to have people that are just going to complain. I was talking to somebody yesterday on one of the small group calls. They're like, hey, I did the rate increase and it's a $3,000 increase to revenue, which is not a little bit,
yeah, that's paying yourself.
I had only had 2 people complain, and that's all they did was complain. They didn't leave. They just complained.
Yeah, whenever.
Okay. I was like, would you let somebody complain to you for 15 minutes for $3,000? I'm like, for sure.
Every day. No, and one of the questions I often ask our clients when we're going through this is, who are the 3 people that are going to say something?
Right.
And they're like, Sally, Bob, and Joe. And I'm like, cool, expect that. And the other 97 aren't going to say anything. It's just in their head. They're like, everyone. It's like, nope, the same 3 people that complained when you move the rowers to the other side of the room are going to complain when you do a rate increase. And those same 3 people are still going to be there the next week, whether it's moving the rowers or raising the rates. So it's so important. And I think it's again, like affiliate owners just don't understand the value they're giving people. If the alternative of a rate increase is potentially closing, and if you close, who are you helping?
Yeah, if you don't do that, you can never offer a better service, and therefore you could never run a good business. At which point this just continues to spiral out of control, right? So rather than like try to make your prices cheaper, like, value slap people, right? Like put more value into the current price point, right? Then they won't say no, right? People are always like, people ask me all the time, they're like, you don't have a problem charging people for money? And I'm like, no, because they're getting a fucking steal by being here based on what they pay, right? All the things they get, I'm like, I could easily charge $300 for this. I'm like, I'm charging a good point. Like our prices are 180 to 205, right? And it's one of those things I'm like, and they get a lot for that, which is why I have no problem charging people that much money or passing off credit card fees or doing 4-week billing cycles, like all those things, because it's like, I know and I understand and I'm confident in the value that's provided.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, they love it here.
What's that?
And here's they love it here. Like it's
right.
They wouldn't want to go anywhere else. I'm sure there's a cheaper box in Virginia Beach than Rife, right? And they're like, yeah, but we love it here because of all these other things and all these things you've done well for the last 10 years. And by the way, affiliate owners, everything in your life has increased in cost since you've opened your doors.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you should gouge people, right? Like it's always like the value should outweigh the price, right? And that's the hard conversation, which is like, and this, when it comes to a price increase, I've told many gym owners, I'm like, hey, you're gonna have to earn that price increase over the next 6 months, and you're gonna have to really dig deep to make sure that people feel the increased value before they have to reach into their pocketbooks and do that. That's how you get past the objections.
Well, and that's where the difference in the perceived value and the cost is the goodwill you have with your members, right?
Correct.
So we're not saying undercharge. We're just saying provide so much value that they love it here. And it doesn't matter if you charge 185 to 205, they're getting so much out of it that they're happy to pay that. And I'm just talking about affiliate, like everything in life costs more money year after year, right? Not just
Right.
your rent on the building, but your Netflix, your milk, whatever you're buying is going up, inflation, right? And by grandfathering people in or not changing the rates, long term, you're going to lose money.
Yeah, the given is that you will have to do that, or the business will go out. The question now becomes is like, what is the strategy? Is like, how much and when, and how do I plan modulating that value in order to make sure that people never really have a problem with it, right? That's the whole name of the game. But all of this goes back to the running theme in all of these topics is you need to know your numbers. You need to know the information. You need to know how many leads are coming in. You need to know what your budget is. You need to know what are the metrics that I would be looking at that are the people that stick around the longest. Like, you need to know those things. I need to know what the trends are. So you need to have this information. And newsflash here, if you've never dug into that, it can be a little painful finding it, but you can make those things fairly easy, meaning like you can have that information and most CRMs show up when and how you want it to. The issue is like, you got to go in there and do it. And I'm going to let everybody in a little secret. If you're just starting off in this journey, it's going to be a lot of information that's going to hurt your feelings, but you still have to go through with it. Like, you've got to start, right? Just like working out from the first time sucks, right? You still got to show up to day 2 and day 3 and day 4. Eventually it won't suck as much anymore. And eventually you'll get a little bit better. And eventually you'll find something else that's hard. And then you're going to fucking go through the whole process all over again. It's the same thing.
But you're absolutely right. It's, whether it's a budget, tracking your leads, considering doing a rate increase, put 30 minutes in your calendar for tomorrow and just start. You're not going to finish it all, but you're not going to finish any of it if you don't start.
Right.
So hopefully this chat about revenue has helped. We hit some major topics. Hopefully you got some value out of this. Whether you decide to book a call with us or you just take the lessons we've given you and run with it, that's what we're here for. We put out episodes 2-3 times a week in an effort to help affiliate owners. If you've listened to this entire episode and you got one thing out of it, and now Fern dropped hundreds, I dropped maybe 1 or 2. So if you got something, I dropped 1. If you got something from us, I have an ask of you. Can you just hit the like button on whatever you're listening on? If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. If you're on some sort of podcast app, give us a review. But if you could do something to just pay it forward for us and help us spread the word, we just want to help affiliate owners out there. So hit that like button if you're watching this on YouTube, and it means a lot to us. We'll be back with more episodes helping you run a better affiliate.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. We appreciate you listening and choosing to have us help you in your passion for coaching and affiliate ownership. You can find more episodes just like this on all podcast platforms. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to us on any social media platforms, or you can visit www.besthouroftheirday.com to book a call. If you found this episode helpful for you, please share it so that we can help other coaches and affiliate owners to help build a bigger and stronger CrossFit community. Thanks for listening.